Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I'll bring to you the follow-up video to the AdMech theory that I had. Not like all of you are sitting there with theories. I mean, maybe you are. But I made a video talking about, well, AdMech, you confuse the hell out of me because you all do things a bit differently. And I had a theory as to what might be able to help you do the winning part of playing 40k more often. Now, there was a mix of responses, and again, I want to say thank you to anybody that took the time to give me a detailed breakdown about why you, for the most part, disagreed with some of my things, but there was an agreement or two in there. And also, I guess I should say now, I usually would do shout outs to comments and things like that for crediting people's feedback appropriately. Usually I would do that. Um, but here's the thing where I'm unfortunately not going to do that this time around because sometimes the internet gets grumpy. And, well, some of you got pretty grumpy, I'll be honest. And my friend, on a completely unrelated topic, reminded me that that's just the 40k community. So if any of these things trigger your heart rate to jump that much about little plastic figures, chill out. But on to the fact of not going on that, I don't want any of you to deal with people going onto the comment and like just being asses for no reason, okay? So I'm fine with being the punching bag when I've opened the door to ask about why you do the things that you do. And before I start talking about the things that you all came to conclusions, I want to talk a bit more about the goal and some of the things, right? First off, I am surprised that so many of you found that video. Um, I'm glad, again, that was what I wanted, and most of you could understand, hey, I don't play your faction. Tell me why you do this weird thing. Shouldn't you do this? And most of you went, nah, this is why we do it. And we can understand that, and you could give in-depth breakdowns on that part. But I gotta admit, there is some of you alluded to some of the things that I kind of really wanted out of the conversation, which is the past the macro of the game being played, the macro of the state of the game. So what do I mean by that? I think the Rush Stalkers right now didn't necessarily order them, however I had it on the last one, but the Rush Stalkers is a good example for this, and I want to talk about, and I will be relating my Tyranid playerness to, because that's what I mean by the further macro, to hopefully illustrate what I mean by some of the suggestions. Now, again, not every faction is one to one, and there's reasons further why some things work for us that won't work for you, no matter how it works. But I always love these when I propose something different, and there's always at least one person that goes, "Your math is off." At least one, and that's true. But here's the great thing about a war game. Uh, it depends on your target. That depends on your target. Now, I believe it was the same comment that acknowledged that now if that's what your meta contains, then yeah, maybe do that. And that's why I want to talk about kind of the Rush Stalkers. In the last one, I proposed transonic razors and core claws instead of transonic blades. And the common consensus that I saw is no, you need the blades. The dev wounds allow you to punch up. Anti-infantry 3 up, whatever. We need to punch up. We don't really clear things and pick things up that easy. Now coming on to relating this with things that happened with my own faction, um, I want to talk about, I guess, the concept of punching up overall and needing to do that or trying to do that. Because one of the main things that I've had a gripe with is Tyranid Warriors this edition. On paper, you go, all right, if I get there, they can punch up, blend, whatever, right? And it's all fine and dandy. A lot of people look at the output of that and go, yeah, this is that unit, 215 points, love it, you know, tiny, fine days, whatever, right? That unit does have 4-5-2-1. So, funny enough, I will be arguing against that for this relation to what I mean. But the problem with the Warriors is they're slow, they have no invuln, and they're all or nothing. They are melee or nothing. They don't have defensive things to help. They don't have stealth. They don't have an invuln. They don't have fights first, any of that. Um, and they are just a melee unit. You'll be hard pressed to find them being able to fulfill more than a role besides just a counterpunch. Now, for the longest time, I've liked Von Ryan's Leapers, and I'm like, hey, maybe swap that out. Maybe try that out. Von Ryan's Leapers, you get infiltrate, they're stealth, they have an invuln, they have fights first. And for the targets, how badly do you need that additional AP when it's fights first? If your warriors get charged, it's all or nothing, right? Like they get charged, they don't have a fight first. They will just take the hit, and you hope that they can some of them can survive to put the damage back. Um, Meanwhile, Von Ryan's Leapers, you're guaranteed one way or another if combat happens, they will get some of their value out. Now, some people have saw what I meant on that, and of course, a lot of people have their attachment to their warriors, didn't really see it. A lot of people suggested Raveners, which are faster. They have one more attack than warriors. They're AP 1 though, damage 1. Also twin linked like the warriors, no reroll hits or run. I should mention the Von Ryan's Leapers don't have reroll hits or wounds, okay? But they have deep strike and they're faster. So that means your melee unit that wants to get into melee can be off the board. Not saying that you're relying on 9-inch charges. Let's not get there. But if you are off the board, you can't be shot. And then you can prime yourself up to make these charges, especially with better movement. So a lot of people then started to move towards the shift of Raveners. And again, just to cough, again, not saying that everything I say is perfect, just I want to lay out my logic so that somebody that was willing to hear my theory or that wasn't before at least understands the mapping of this, okay? Um, then you see Raveners pick up more play because the target that you're going into, again, target selection, a lot of people rely a lot on the punch up when there's other things you have, or you just say, fuck it, we can't do that, and you double down into other things. And that's something that you all talked about that I will get into as well. Go into the Raveners, you realize, all right, they can do comparable damage at the same targets that I wanted to hit with my warriors. I can do it with Raveners. They can also deep strike, score me some points. And then some people, the cough was because we saw in pro play, people started taking the foot off the gas for the Raveners and coming over to what I was saying about the Von Ryan's Leapers. They give you positioning, they give you scoring, they hit the targets, they are also AP1. They're not Synapse, so the strength is lower on that and the Raveners outside of Synapse. Right, so all these things, and you come over to seeing what I mean with the Von Ryan's Leapers, where you get more things beyond just the output profile. And for that part, let's talk about why I talk about some output profiles. Nobody, again, this one is going to sound, I don't know how to say this in a better tone, because it's a thing that happens often when I talk about certain units. If I talk about damage dealing units, somebody says we don't do damage, we score. If I talk about a scoring unit, somebody goes, I don't want to score, I do damage. That's 40k. You're going to have a mix of both units in your list. That's 40k. I'm not saying that you need to now fill your list with all of the things taken. It's why are you taking what you do? That's my question, or that was my question. So I'm not saying that you just rely on the fact of killing, but if I'm talking about your 5 models in your army range that do damage output compared to scoring something, like you're not looking for your Scorpius Disintegrator to score you points. I hope you're not relying on that. So you have an entire other army list of things to do that. So that's where it's like, yes. Now, coming back to the Rust Stalkers on that front, and their anti-infantry and target selection and what they do. Okay, so one of the points that I was trying to make, going back again to something like Von Ryan's Leapers. Now, not saying that Raveners, I also like Raveners as well, but my selection is because they have stealth, fights first, and an invul. They'll be there at least to get their damage across, as well as helping you screen and score points. All right. Coming to Rust Stalkers, from my point of view, you would want to go with the anti-infantry 3 up because the only thing that I would imagine, again, the only thing I would imagine would be that you're taking this into the screens as well and getting yourself in position to screen your damn self. I To the punch up argument, again, I understand it. We do it. We all have units that we go, these allow me to punch up. My gene stealers allow me to punch up with their devastating wounds. But I'm not punching up that further. How far do you want to punch up is the other thing, right? So yeah, I could throw my Broodlord Gene Stealers that have devastating wounds into a target that is not infantry and possibly like block up a rhino. That way it's harder for people to disembark and all of these things. But more often than not, I find that my scouting unit that I'm sending up, I want them to meet into another infantry unit, and that their devastating wounds is helping me punch up onto targets that are slightly higher toughness than my strength, right? And that's again, that holds the same over here for devastating wounds, except my Broodlord Gene Stealers are still AP2, which means that when I'm not doing my devastating wounds and I'm still getting my wounds through on AP2, that random custodian guard unit that I'm throwing my gene stealers into still has to take it on higher than they wanted to thanks to the AP. That's where I was coming from with the Transonic Razor and Cord Claw versus Transonic Blades, because what happens in those instances when the thing that I would imagine you go into can just be wounded on threes? I start putting wound saves on Deathwing Knights, any of this other bullshit on threes with AP2 instead of devastating wounds and units that more or less one way or another have a feel no pain, especially for mortals, right? So that's where I was seeing it, and I understand why you all would say that you still are doing Transonic Blades no matter what, because the rest of your damage output, who knows where it is, right? Who knows where the fuck it is? It's somewhere. So, on the Rush Stalkers, I get it. I get it. I get it. I don't want to make it seem like I didn't hear you all on that one. I just wanted to give a little bit further onto my own factions, and that's what I mean, like the macro further. Like I was hoping to hear more of the macro reasons besides just our damage isn't there. That's why I take this, because you also still have other units that can do things one way or another. Maybe, maybe not. I understand that the AdMech Codex is rough, and that's the other point I want to talk about with the AdMech Codex. I know it's rough, right? I understand it's rough, and but I always have the. I'm usually not an optimist by day. I promise. I say this on a couple of videos, but my brain is always tinkering and thinking, and maybe it's because I used to be in architecture in college, but maybe less is more. And sometimes the thing that isn't optimal turns out to be optimal. Sometimes it's just weirdly enough the way that it works, you go, how the fuck does this work on paper? Another thing, for example, again, just to track my reasoning with my own, I understand if you don't know Tyranids, it isn't going to really understand or do a lot for you right now. But hopefully I can explain it enough of what I mean by other things where sometimes less is more. You take our Norn Emissary. A lot of people looked at it was like, that's Primarch level. Turns out it's not Primarch level, right? And it was 290 points at one point in the edition, if I remember correctly. If not just the 300. I think Assimilator was just 315 and it was 290. Either way, it was expensive. Now, I know I like the model, and I go, well, I think it's still kind of workable. And most people would say, hell no. And even in most cases today, you'd be hard pressed to convince somebody to take a Norn Emissary in Tyranids. Now, how do you tell people that you should take 3 of the unit they don't want to take 1 of? That's exactly what happens. Somebody finally, or the list finally start taking not 1, but 3 Norn Emissaries at 290 points in Synaptic Nexus. And people go, oh wait, I guess it can do a thing here. Synaptic Nexus gets nerfed, along with the Armor of Contempt changes. People go back to, alright, never again. I'm sorry, I tried. me included, I don't really rate Synaptic Nexus like that until what happened recently with points and again other things. When things go up and you realize, well, if I'm going to pay those points, I might as well do this. That's an aside. Norn Emissary also gets lowered because GW saw they still don't want to take the Norn Emissary, and they probably really don't want to do it now that we nerfed Synaptic Nexus. But I've the entire time been saying Crusher Stampede is viable, and you should be trying that anyway. And the Norns are monsters. So yeah, they hit on twos, but that completely offsets your bracketing. And if they finally pull your Norn off of a point, you have a auto deadly demise strat that is going to start leveling the playing field. So that's just some more backstory for what I'm going to say on this. Sometimes it takes taking the shit that you don't think is any good, and maybe multiples of it, before you get somewhere with it. The Norns go down in points, Synaptic Nexus gets nerfed, and Triple Norn wins us another tournament. And Triple Norn wins us tournaments in Crusher Stampede, a different detachment that, again, people weren't trying, even though I'm going like, hey guys, yeah, I know it doesn't do much while you're fully healed, but you can go through walls with monsters, and movement wins games. So, people finally start catching on with Crusher Stampede, and lo and behold, Triple Norn is pretty good for us. You add things that we already had, you find that. So, I'm sorry I talked so much about Tyrannage in the AdMech recap video, but I hope some of those things starts to talk about why I have the opinion that sometimes if the shit's not working all fucking edition, you gotta do something. You gotta do something. And I also don't want you all to end up wasting away, even though, again, I'm not giving GW any passes. That shit is abysmal, okay? But I don't want you all to end up like what happened with GSC, where GSC the entire time Codex gets released. Oh, this is bad. It's the worst thing ever. And then finally, a few GSC players go, oh, I'm going to try Outlander Claw. They try Outlander Claw. Guess what? It's good. Then they go, well, I'm kind of bored with Outlander Claw. Can I do anything with Biosanctic? Guess what? It's good. And both of those are winning, right? Then GW, because they've been complaining about the codex for the last 5 months, buffs it in the next update, and people go, why would you buff that? Why would you do this? They were strong. It's like for the last 7 months you've told GW this is horrible, right? So then they buff it, then people go, I can't believe I have to fight so many buff GSC. Why would they do that? So then they alter GSC again, right? And again, and again. And they've still been good every iteration since. Now, I know that the first time was demolition charges, and we went, damn, I wish that they did something about GSC demo charges. Alright, no. Once that goes out the window, you think your faction's dead, so you don't do anything. Turns out they were sitting on gold the entire time. Now their rule is more consistent, but the ability that sometimes you get 2,000 points of your army back was pretty nuts that nobody was really doing it on. Sometimes you got 0 points of your army back. So let's be real, there's always things to consider. And furthermore on that, detachments. Now, I've covered some of the AdMech detachments because I look at this and I go, huh, this was working for somebody else. How come it doesn't work for you all? Which again is the entire premise of what that last video was. Where I'm like, well, okay, this faction has a detachment that is asking you when you stand next to this objective, you get rerolls, and then everybody's crying about that. Oh, AdMech, you have that. Why is this isn't great? And again, it's still I understand why it's not great. And in fact, I feel a little bit redeemed about my initial reaction to Halo's Creed Battleclade, thanks to you all, where I read that shit, I was like, but you're still playing AdMech. And everybody else is like, this is the best detachment we've ever seen, especially this week. Like, this is insane. And then Star Shatter got released the next day. So, I was like, but you're still playing AdMech, right? Like, the data sheets, this is helping your data sheets do the do for the starter. So, as far as understanding the codex not being great, I 100% agree. I know what that's like. Tyranids, it took our army rule to be buffed, and we still are kind of just okay. Yeah, I understand that you all don't do the killing. Guess what? I play a faction that doesn't do that either. But that doesn't mean that I tell people to never try to do that because you're still playing a war game, whether GW remembers that for you or not. Um, you may go, I've had trouble with Exocrines and Maliceptors, and I say there's a reason that's the only thing that we bring because our strength for most of our things stop at 9, 10 with the Maliceptor. For the most part, hard capped at that. And those units specifically. So I understand when you all are like, hey, the reason we're taking. And this is the other thing where, again, it's the internet. So people will have different experiences with their things. And this is where I gotta admit, this was a little bit confusing to me because there was some conflicting, but I think broad agreements as far as on a Dune Crawlers situation, where I'm like, why are you taking the North Cover Twin Link 12 shots? Your entire army kills this profile. Um, and, I want to say some things were pointed out on the fact that you're taking the defensive profile for the points. And I can understand that. And if you're giving your battle line a 4-up invuln around it, that's pretty cool too. Now, Neutron Laser seems to be still up in the air from what I can understand on the comments on if you go for it or not. My 2 cents was that you do, because this is one of the few things in your army that lets you wound T12 on 3s instead of 4s. And on that note, I should clear up this as well. I know some of it sound like I was pulling it out of my ass, I promise, but I didn't want to just pull up lists from BCP that I've seen in tournaments, which triggered this entire video as to wondering why the fuck are you all doing this, and flame people. That's not fucking right. So I didn't want. That's why I didn't provide. Yeah, like why are you all doing this in several of the lists? So, if you say we don't do that, I'm like, no, I'm looking at this list right now. In fact, I see 3 this weekend that have Honor Dooncrawler on Twin Onager Heavy Phosphor Blaster, Scorpius Disintegrator on Ferromite Cannon, and what was the other one that I was talking about? And a bunch of Dragoons with Radium Giselles, right? That's the tank busting one, or is it Taser Lances? Taser Lances, sorry. Sidonian Dragoons with Taser Lances. And I'm like, now, why are we doing that? Oh, sorry, the other Walker, the fucking this shit, Iron Strider Ballistari. Sorry, yeah, that's why I'm like, no, I'm looking at 3 lists right now that have Ballistari with Las Cannons, Disintegrator with Ferromite Cannon, but the Onager Dune Crawler with the Twin Onager Heavy Phosphor Blaster. So, it's not to say that. I mean, hey, you could just say I'm wrong and we all call it a day. That's fine with me too. But I didn't want to just pull up lists where I see the thing that's causing me to ask these questions and just flame people. Now, to that point though, that was correct. This bit of information was correct when you say you're not doing that, and I say, no, I'm looking at it right now. Going over to the lists that are winning, most of them don't do that. Most of them, I want to pull up the one right here, most of them aren't tripling down on the anti thing that I'm questioning about why you all do that, right? We're looking at this one was Adam 411, Adam Watson. You're looking at Scorpius Dune Rider, just to transport shit. You're looking at Breachers and calling it a day. We're looking at Samuel was also, I'm pretty sure this was the good one. Breachers, Disintegrators calling it a day. There's not also still the Iron Strider Ballistari. But going to the fact of, I don't want you all to stop experimenting. If you go back 3 months, you have something funky over here, such as the inclusion of Sulfur Hounds and Stratoraptors along with Disintegrators. So for 185 points, there's another Las Cannon and Heavy Phosphor Blasters and Heavy Stubbers. And telling anybody to bring a flyer is a very tough sell. Now, Has that changed for you all in the past 3 months, AdMech players, where it's like, well, it looks a little bit more viable now? Can't say. Honestly, can't say. But last I checked, its points didn't go down, and you all don't have another thing that might make bringing Stratoraptors for yourself any better. Now, going back to the point of, you were right, you don't. The winning list, okay? The winning list aren't doing that thing where you're taking 2 or 3 of these things in the list on top of the breachers that I didn't include right now, where I'm like, well, they have anti-vehicle loadout. Why are you taking that on top of everything? The winning list, for the most part, didn't do that. You're right. I was coming from the point of view, negative bias, I guess you could say, of looking at lists that I'm wondering what's going on here. And sure enough, the thing that you all are telling me you don't do is possibly why it wasn't doing the do. Now, there's also the bit where a couple of you touched on leaning towards heavily one aspect of AdMech. And that was interesting because, I think I hadn't even heard about this part of skewing for AdMech for some months, and I completely forgot about this. But a good portion of people said, well, you're trying to, or maybe this one was also, please clarify for me if this is how all of you feel, or a decent enough portion of you feel. Where it is, well, yeah, you could switch the imperatives, but you're really, really focusing on doing one of those imperatives with your list all game, and then skewing harder towards, if you need it, the anti-vehicle, anti-tank busting shit, while still playing the game with the rest of your things. And that was interesting. I also would say I just covered an AdMech list from Alpine Cup yesterday for you all. Oh, also sorry that this video was later. I figured 7 days would be a week would be a good pool of information, but then people kind of kept commenting and coming in and finding it. So I was just like, well, all right, I'll just do a week because again, I was surprised so many of you find it. So, to the point of, this is the reason that you all are bringing the Ferromite cannon, because you're also not bringing something else in the list um, that matches what the disintegrator can do. All right, yeah, that makes sense. For the list that do include both Dune Crawler, Disintegrator, Ballistari, I will continue to ask the question of why don't you at least make this indirect fire? Oh, and to that point, I should say, um, Casino Cannon previously Haver with the rupture effects. It was D6 sorry 2d6 damage at one point, and this for a good portion of this edition. That's why we didn't take it compared to Zoe spam and things like that. Like, I want to know. I like hearing about those other things, like why you weren't taking a thing. So if it's the 2d6 on the Belarus Energy Cannon, Blast, Indirect Fire, I do want to mention it is still some of the cheaper indirect fire in the game, whether it be a roulette or not. It is still some of the cheaper ones. And okay, fucking guard doesn't count. That's like them. But looking at other ones, yeah, I can understand why it's 175. So maybe don't skew into 3 indirect fire disintegrators if you are even considering experimenting with the thing I was theorizing over here. Maybe just one. Hear me out, baby steps. We're going to get it there. Baby steps if you are doing I'm taking Dune Crawler with Neutron Laser and Iron Strider Ballistari. Now, to the point, you all did show me that in a vacuum, this is why you're taking it. Because if you're taking the Onager Dune Crawler and you're not taking anything else, you're taking it with the Heavy Phosphor Blaster for the defensive profile to buff your shit around you, and you're going up with it. That's good to know. Good to know, again, Disintegrator. If you're only taking the Disintegrator, take the Ferromite Cannon. That's why you're doing it. And, Ballistari, we're Ballistari. Now, here comes the next point of asking you all about the list design and the things that you do. So, you all have laid out for me, and I think I understand for the most part. If there's something I'm still not terribly clear about, again, feel free, correct me in the comments. Let me know all the things. I just want to know things. Oh, and genuinely though, this is not. I promise this isn't being catty, pissy, whatever. Genuinely, some of you should think about uploading AdMech content on YouTube. I know not everybody vibes with uploading their voice on the interwebs. I understand. Omnissiah, have you, whatever, right? But there was good knowledge things in there that the other reason that people found my video that I'm semi aware of, I again didn't expect it to be as many as you as it was, is because people aren't doing AdMech content. And I think once you start doing, or once you start having more people in the community that are talking about your faction, then you start doing things like not getting me who goes, "Hey AdMech, why did you do this thing? It doesn't seem to be working out." And then you all going, "Yeah, that shit won't work out. Why would you ever say that?" Not you all didn't say that per se. That I go, "Well, I'm looking at it and it doesn't work out." You go, "Well, yeah, they shouldn't be doing that." Somebody needs to help you all talk about it. Now, if that means you stay on Reddit all day or Twitter help you, um, sure, maybe. But I don't know. I think some of you should consider making YouTube videos. Honestly, consider it. Or more, maybe you all just were commenting on alts and you have a popular AdMech channel. If you have a popular AdMech channel, and I actually fuck it, if, whoever you are, if you have an AdMech channel, plug it in the comments. Go for it. Um, I would rather people know more about the army and experiment with things and all the things, all the like, have conversations about it, and then figure out if your faction has any hope of doing some things. Because again, to relate to another faction, Drukari makes me kind of sad. Where they finally get a little bit and people go, "Oh wait, we all do that," but people are still calling it bad. Where it's like they just won 5 tournaments this month. I don't know. I don't know if that's a bad faction. And then you have one person that's like an AdMech spokesperson on YouTube, but the faction still feels bad for the average person. It's like somebody got to help Repeat do the thing. So AdMech between, I don't want you all to end up like GSC where it turns out that you actually have good things and nobody's doing it because they feel bad about the thing, or you end up like Drukari where somebody has tapped into it but nobody's really figuring out like the exact things past it. I don't know. I just don't want this faction to do that, despite the fact that GW has its own issues. Let's again, understand GW is not perfect on game design. I criticize them highly on these things, but at the same time, I do have to toss them a bone every now and again. Where especially, that's the thing. Let's go over here. Halo Street Battle Clay. Like I said, my first reaction was, "But you're still playing AdMech." I don't see this being that insane. And there's been a lot of builds for Halo's Creed. And in fact, coming again through tourney lists that I was looking at BCP this weekend and the last that were X and 1, the thing that you all said about, well, we're not doing that. And also I do want to note that I laughed at this. So just if you find this video, person that commented this, I did laugh at you said something along the lines of some people fall into the trap, and I fear that you might have fallen into it too. I laughed hard as fuck because I could see that being exactly what happened. Like, this like, well, I see what went wrong for other AdMech players, and I'm wondering why this isn't this, and this. Um, so if I fall into that trap too, that's the trap. But I will say it's not that I fell into the trap of, oh, you guys are glass cannon damage dealers. You just blast everybody off the board. No. But if I'm going to talk about your damage dealing units, that's what we're talking about today. I didn't put out a video talking about how well you can screen with infiltrators on AdMech. That's not today's video. All right. I didn't talk about how raiders can score you some points here, here, and here. Like, if I did the entire faction, I definitely am not qualified to talk about the entire faction. But if I make a video asking about or talking about my theories and wondering why you all are doing the way that you do, then it's in a niche hole for one-off things that I am hoping people come into the comments and go, well, the reason that we're taking now the Scorpius Disintegrator with the Ferromite cannon is because for 175 points at 10 to 12, it gives us better than trying to take Honor Dragoon Crawler at 155 with the neutron laser, even though it has heavy. Um, the wound, like if there's other reasons on top of that, those are the things that I like to hear. It's like, well, What really happened is the reason, like, for example, another example with my own faction. We've seen Zoe's come back because they're 200 points like the Tyrannofex is now. But a lot of people are taking the Neuro Tyrant already that can lead the Zoes and make them better. So you go, fuck it, I might as well try dropping the Tyrannofex at its 200 point cost and bringing back the Zoes now that the Zoes can attach to the Neuro Tyrant, which wasn't always the case. So things like that, I like to hear if what changes happened and on that all of those fronts that leads you to include the things that you do in your list, right? We can all look at the spreadsheet and go, yeah, this would do the most damage in this potential scenario, but is there a world where you drop both the Honor Gardoon crawlers, the Scorpius disintegrators, and the uh fucking Cataphron breachers and just spam units of Ballistari because they're hitting on 12s anyway. They're cheaper with, well, not the full brick isn't cheaper, right? But you know, if you do a couple of Iron Strider Ballistari throughout the thing, but they give you the angles to advance and shoot to take out somebody else's tank with 4 shots because you're taking maybe 2 models of these and they're walkers, so there's blocking potential at 10-inch movement with heroic intervention, literally just to put a body in the way or some shit like that. I understand that this Dune Crawler is also a walker, but you know, if there's ever a world where something like that happens, I think it would be fucking interesting. Especially where, because it is 2 models. No, no shit. Here we go. We're making a theory in the middle of a. I understand why the last theory wasn't too hot. For some people, kind enough are like, hey, actually, I am going to try that. See if I get my ass beat less. So to those people, shout out to you for having an open mind in 2025. We probably need more of that, unfortunately. But yeah, if there's a world where you start just doing Ballistari and seeing the rest of it is filling the board still, like this is why I came over here. The consensus I saw is that still the only viable detachment is Skitarii Hunter cohort. Um, do I think that's not true? No. Uh, uh, okay, I guess I think I still think that there's hope for Halo Creed. I guess I'll say that much. But the thing that AdMech did that I see that every faction we do in 40k. Tyrannage, we do it here. We're still playing fucking Invasion Fleet. You get a detachment that is better than the rest, and no matter what other changes happen, you're still fucking playing that detachment. Our Assimilation Swarm got buffed, and if you ask me, that is now our best detachment, even though I've been riding for Crusher Stampede being better than people thought it was this entire edition. People are still going to play Invasion Fleet, and hell, even Synaptic Nexus is coming out of nowhere with triple, double Norn builds that, thanks to the way other points shook out, are more viable now. So I try to, when I look at another faction that's not my own, right? I would hope that you all don't, and I know you all did this, where you all got the change to your army rule, and it was still just Skitarii Hunter cohort spam. And I don't mean in the way that those are the only ones that were getting results. I think we all knew that. But I mean, if you look at the win rates for that fucking 3 month, 6 month period post the rule change for Army rule, it was one person in 6 months played Explorative Maniple. They got a fucking 2-5 or 2-3. They didn't do it ever again. They learned their lesson. So I do want to still stress that while the hypothesis, thesis, the theory I had could be wrong. I'm completely open to that. I'm not going to argue and say that no, I still think I'm right. No, fuck it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll take that every day of the week. But at the same time, I do hope that at least some of you try out the wrong shit in case it ends up being right. Happens all the time. Units, war gear, detachments. And that's kind of where it is on the Rust Stalkers, where it's like, I don't know, Chief. I understand what you're saying, But the same way, oh, and I don't think I said it in this take of the recording. Sorry, this is going on a while. But coming back to the whole like Warriors thing, why the fuck are you trying to put up on some certain things anyway? Like you shouldn't be over there. There's sometimes that you just shouldn't be over there. If it's something that you can't handle, the devastating wounds of X, Y, and Z probably won't do it. How about you efficiently kill the shit over here with anti-infantry 3 up, 2 AP for the looters and the tank busters that have a 5 up save anyway, right now that everybody's playing right now. Oh, and to that point, people did explain that even some of the lists that I'm like, no, I'm looking at 3 disintegrators, 3 ballistari, 3 dune crawlers right now. I understand. I'm looking at this right now. To that point, there was the point being made of, well, the meta was very tank heavy. So that's why some of those lists look like that. And I guess to that point, I am still confused why those lists look like that, and you still brought the Twin Onager Heavy Phosphor Blaster instead of the Neutron Laser and things like that. So to that, I guess I am still going to remain confused on that aspect, but it is important to point out uh, when the meta is changing, you kind of have to change loadouts. You kind of have to write a different list and see what happens. I know every faction is guilty of it. It's like, no, I'm going to continue running Skitarii Hunter cohort, 200 little models, score points. I get it. It's tried and true. Works enough, right? Sometimes it'll take a GT down. Sometimes it won't. But I, on this channel, like to at least give the what if you tried this and then we stumble upon something new. And that's what the goal again for that last one was. Like I said in the video, um, even if I'm wrong, hopefully the way to getting the right answer, even if I think my answer is right, you get the right answer while telling me why I'm wrong or something like that, right? I maybe, and I'm gonna be frank. I'm one of those people that, yeah, you could say that this is the right answer, but the results aren't following. That sounds rude. I'm sorry, but genuinely, if you go an entire edition, besides GW just being incompetent with the codex, right? Every now and again you pick up a fucking unit that you never were looking at, was never looking at. Again, going over here to getting a top 4 and taking fucking Stratoraptor, was it? Yeah, taking some Stratoraptors. Guess what? For 185 points, it's cheap. It's not cheap, sorry. It has hover, plus 1 to fly, or was it? Let's look at the. Let's actually just pull it back up to make sure that it is the right one that I. Yeah, the Stratoraptor. Right? Hook up the Stratoraptor. Now you have an angle with a single shot las cannon. And you have half the shots with the Dune Crawler. But hell, apparently there's a time and a place where it works. Maybe there's the other things that go unseen. Like, yeah, it has half the output and it costs more. But it's an aircraft. It can get you different angles that you weren't necessarily, your opponent might not be expecting. It has hover. Actually, I should say it has 2 heavy phosphor blasters, and it was 12 shots on the Dragoon Crawler, right? So was I still right on half? Yeah. Okay. So like something like that where it's still half, uh, and not twin linked actually. Yeah, not twin linked. Things like that. So some things go unnoticed, and I'm not saying that that one off list is the end all be all, right? I'm not saying that this is everybody just be like Jason. Um, but everybody has to figure out a way to do things. Sidonian Dragoons with Taser Lances singles. Maybe that's you got Taser Lances, Ballistari, Breachers, Destroyers, and 2 Dune Crawlers with neutron lasers. Cough cough. Somebody took neutron lasers and got second at Winchester 3 months ago. Again, the meta has changed, but it's to say that it worked at one point in time. So I don't know. Maybe you all get to the drawing board and things that you thought were previously utterly ridiculous, give it a second look. Maybe the meta has changed around it enough that, damn, 2 Stratoraptors, 2 Dune Crawlers. What else did we see in here right now? A unit of Ballistari and some fucking, just to continue, rust stalkers with razor and core claws. Fuck it. Maybe that does it this time. Who knows? So I'm just here to pitch my goal, right? Is to pitch ideas for things that might make this have more of these, right? More of those. We see Adam. We're making the strides. Oh, and that's my final one that I wanted to ask why you all aren't doing this compared to every other Imperium one. What happened to including Imperial Knights? Um, this is where I'll end off on. Can somebody tell me what happened for you all that you are no longer taking Canis Rex and no longer taking armigers, whether that be Warglaves or Helverins? I still don't understand how Helverins work for anybody, but uh, I just don't rate it that highly. For 130 points, the thing that I guess is that for 130 points, you have this profile, and then you get the benefits of your own army rule. So that's what I would assume. But a Warglaive, I would think that you would like sustained and some melee punching capabilities and take them into your list. But just saw Canis Rex in somebody else's Imperium thing while I was covering it yesterday. Today? Days blend together when you're talking about 40k. Um, but what happened to Canis Rex in your list? Fuck it. Probably put him in the thumbnail. Maybe not. I don't know. Because it's on the end off. Either way, thinking out loud at that point. I guess technically this is always a video of me thinking out loud. Well, that's trippy. But, while you all have told me and cracked the case as to why you don't take certain things like the neutron laser, even though we see you sometimes take the fucking neutron laser, and why some units that you will say never to take might do it for you today. Somebody give me the rundown on why Canis Rex is no longer in your list. 450 points. If you say it's because Titanic, I do want to say Titanic is making a decent enough comeback with some of the other armies. So, oh, and I thought I was going to end on that. Fucking hell. Sorry to keep you here if you're still here. You don't have to be if you don't want to. Thank you for being here if you are. Emulators. You have access to emulators now. 115 points. You get Battle Sisters as well. Everybody else is taking emulators. I understand that if you're going to take an emulator, I guess it's comparable. Hey, look at that. 2d6 cough cough. Um, you know, to the fucking Dune Crawler with heavy phosphor blaster, I guess on that front, but this one's better defensively for more points and, gives Doctrina. But, you know, everybody else in the Imperium is like, yeah, what if we take emulators, see what happens? And it tends to be good for those people that take emulators one way or another. So, I don't know. Just saying, maybe take emulators, maybe take Canis Rex, keep experimenting. If none of the experiments work out, at least you fucking tried, right? But GW does have to answer for the way that they've written this codex. I got that. Understood. If anybody didn't make it to this point in the video, please just timestamp it and be like, hey, he said he understands about the codex. I got it. I got it. We all do it. We look at our codex, we go, damn, this is kind of ass. Especially our earlier codexes. Hey, Tyrannage, we were first out the gate, and we still have many issues I would like for us to tackle. But we are looking X and 1 ish, X and 2 for the current time being, so I guess I can't cry as much as I would like to about something. So, hey. If you like the video, like it. Got a comment from me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.